I first heard this story from a man who sold spare parts in Onitsha. Before you say anything, this man did not believe in ghosts. Did not believe in witches. Did not believe in charms. According to him, every strange thing in Nigeria could be explained by greed, bad luck, or politicians. Mostly politicians. So when he told me about Ahia Ojii, I paid attention. Not because I believed him. Because he believed it. And there is a difference. The story was about a shopkeeper named Emeka. If you had met him, you probably would not have remembered him immediately. Not because there was anything wrong with him, the opposite. He was the kind of person people only truly notice after they are gone. The sort of man who remembered your children's names without being told twice. The sort of man who let customers owe him money longer than he should have. The sort of man his wife occasionally called a fool. Not as an insult. As a diagnosis. His shop stood on a busy road just outside town. A proper provision shop, Milo, peak milk, Indomie, bottled drinks sweating inside old refrigerators. The kind of place where people came to buy one thing and stayed 30 minutes talking about fuel prices and NEPA and the general state of the nation. Every evening after closing, Emeka dragged a plastic chair outside and sat near the entrance. Across the road, Mama Chinyere fried akara under a kerosene lantern. The smell drifted through everything. Children chased tires through the dust. Okada riders argued over passengers. From the church near the junction came the familiar sound of a pastor threatening the devil through a loudspeaker powerful enough to disturb aircraft. The devil, as far as anyone could tell, never seemed particularly worried. Emeka liked those evenings. He liked ordinary things. That matters. Because people hear what happened later and assume he must have been greedy or reckless. Greed was not his problem. His problem was that he loved too many people. His wife Adiz taught primary school 3 streets away and never sat across from him at dinner. Always beside him. Someone asked her why once, and she looked genuinely confused. Why would I sit far from somebody I like? Their daughters were Chisholm, 7, serious, who had somehow once corrected a radio presenter, and Nneka, who treated every room as a personal challenge and that week had announced she was becoming a lion. Looking back, people always want to discuss the market. The forest. The bargain. Me, I think about those evenings. Because that was what Emeka was fighting to protect. Not money. Not the business. Those evenings. That life. The trouble started with a loan. Emeka borrowed money to expand. A warehouse, a delivery van, extra stock. The usual dreams. Then the normal Nigerian things happened. A supplier vanished with part of the investment. Floodwater destroyed the warehouse stock. The van spent more time at the mechanic than on any road. By Harmattan, Emeka had stopped sleeping properly. The man he owed was called Ifani Ease. Clean shoes. Quiet voice. The kind of man who never needed to raise his voice because the problem was already sitting in the room before he arrived. He gave Emeka 3 weeks. Then 17 days. Each visit shorter than the last. That evening, Matsi Okeke, the old man who had lived on that street since before Emeka's father was born, came and sat beside him in the dark. You look like somebody carrying a corpse. Emeka laughed. Then told him everything. Matsi Okeke listened. When Emeka finished, the old man stared at the road for a long time. Then sighed, not tiredness, the sigh of someone remembering something they wish they had forgotten. There is a market, he said. What market? The old man looked toward the forest beyond the edge of town. The kind you pray never learns your name. He explained it the way you explain a dangerous road to someone who is going to take it anyway. Ahia Ojii. Opens at 2 a.m. Closes at 4 a.m. Been there longer than the town. It sells whatever you need, that is the terrible thing. It knows what you came for before you arrive. The price, Matsi Okeke said slowly, is always something you love. They do not tell you what until after you have already touched what you came to buy. And do not take anyone with you. If it cannot deal with one person, it looks at whoever is standing beside them. Emeka said he understood. He went home. Lay beside Adiz in the dark. Told himself he was not going. He meant it. Then he made the mistake of telling Obinna. Obinna was 28, 8 years younger, possessed of the specific confidence of a man who has not yet had it removed by experience. He had their father's laugh and a stubbornness that was either his best or worst quality depending entirely on the direction it was aimed. When Emeka finished the story, Obinna scratched his head. So there is a supernatural market in the forest. It appears at night. And it solves problems. That is what they say. He nodded. Stood up. We are going. No. We are going. I said no. I heard you. He shrugged. I just disagreed. They argued in the circles brothers argue in when neither is listening because both have already decided. Emeka eventually gave in, not because Obinna convinced him, but because having his brother beside him in the dark was the only solid thing available. They left at 1:30 a.m. without telling anyone. The path appeared from nowhere on a road Emeka had walked 1,000 times. The deeper they went, the quieter the forest became until the silence arrived completely, like someone turning off the world, and all they could hear were their own footsteps. Crunch. 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 Obinna stopped. Do you hear that? Emeka listened. Nothing. Exactly. Then the lanterns appeared, hundreds of them hanging in the trees burning with flames that did not move. The forest opened. And there was Ahia Ojii. Rows of stalls stretching into darkness. Customers moving through them as if this were a perfectly ordinary Saturday market. Nobody arguing. Nobody shouting prices. Nobody laughing too loudly. One stall sold bottles with moving shadows inside. Another sold photographs of funerals where everyone being buried was still alive. An old woman sat behind a table covered in folded shadows in different sizes, a customer choosing between them the way you choose fabric. Then they reached the stall that had been waiting for them, though nobody had directed them there. Above it a wooden sign with writing that looked older than the wood itself. Older than gold. Older than kings. We sell what you need. Behind the counter sat a man who looked completely ordinary. Middle-aged. Thin. Plain white clothing. The sort you could pass in Onitsha main market without noticing. But the harder Emeka looked, the less certain he became about the man's face. Details slid away. Only the feeling remained. You owe money, the trader said. Nobody had mentioned the debt. He placed a small dark wooden box on the counter. Both brothers stepped back instinctively before realizing they had moved. Nobody touched it. The trader waited with the patience of someone who already knew how this would end. Emeka reached forward. Then stopped. Something was wrong, not dangerous, wrong. A certainty that the box was not meant for his hands. The trader's eyes moved slowly past him. Toward Obinna. And smiled. Before Emeka could speak, Obinna lifted the lid. Inside, a single old naira note. Worn. Faded. The kind that had passed through 1,000 hands. Obinna touched it. Every lantern went out at once. Not dimmed. Not flickered. Out. The market vanished. The customers were gone. The silence that replaced everything felt crowded, as though thousands of people were standing in the dark holding their breath. Then a voice from everywhere at once said one word. Accepted. The lanterns returned. The market continued as if nothing had happened. Except Obinna. Still standing with his fingers on the note. Frozen. The trader closed the lid. The debt is settled. The money arrives before dawn. The price? Emeka asked. The trader pointed at Obinna. You. In 1 year. Emeka lunged forward. No. This is my debt. Take me instead. He touched the agreement. An elderly woman passing the stall stopped briefly. Looked at Obinna. Shook her head the way people shake their heads at painful lessons. Then whispered 5 words before disappearing. The market never chooses. They left before dawn. At 3:17 a.m. Emeka checked his account. The money was there. All of it. Neither celebrated. Between them on the kitchen table sat a calendar, and both men had already begun counting. The months that followed were the worst kind, ordinary. Obinna still laughed. Still complained about Arsenal. One evening, unloading cartons behind the shop, he dropped an entire stack into the dirt. Stared at the mess. Then, I blame supernatural forces. Emeka laughed until he had to hold the wall. A customer shook his head. You people are laughing now. We are businessmen, Obinna said. If we stop laughing, we start crying. That night Emeka sat awake after everyone slept, thinking about how easily his brother had laughed. 308 days. They tried everything. Pastors. Healers. A dibia in Nui. An old woman in Sukka who listened to the whole story and refused payment, which frightened them more than anything else. She stared into the distance. If a fish enters a river, you can still pull it out. If a fish enters the ocean, sometimes it belongs to the ocean. One dinner Emeka looked around the table, Neka causing chaos, Chisholm correcting everyone, Adiz beside him, and understood something clearly. The shop would survive without Obinna. The money would survive. But the laughter would not. The specific person would be gone. He stood so suddenly everyone looked up. Are you okay? Just tired. But that night he remembered what the Nui healer had said. Equal value. Equal exchange. And he remembered something he should have noticed the first night. The trader had never said another person was required. Only something freely offered. Willingly given. The first person to notice the change in Emeka was Obinna. You've been preparing me. I am not preparing anyone. You are a terrible liar. He walked away. Neither brought it up again. But Obinna had understood. One night Emeka went to Matsi Okeke's gate. The old man came out in his sleeping clothes, looked at his face, and sat heavily on his step. Don't. I have to. There are no other ways. We both know that. Matsi Okeke put his hand on Emeka's shoulder. Held it there. Then stepped aside. The trader was waiting. You have come to negotiate. No. My brother goes free. I take his place. Freely. You understand the terms. You go home. You live your life. On the anniversary, you simply stop. In your sleep. My family keeps everything. Your family keeps everything. My brother goes free. Your brother goes free. No contract. No ceremony. Just a moment of stillness and something leaving him quietly. The remainder of his future folded away, the way a breath releases at the end of a very long day. He walked home slowly. He was in no hurry. He told nobody. The last evening was dinner. Neka announced she wanted to become an astronaut. Chisholm explained the years of scientific training required. Adiz rolled her eyes. Emeka laughed and held the sound of it somewhere careful. Later he put the girls to bed. Good night, Daddy. Good night. He stood outside their door for a moment. Just listening. He lay beside Adiz in the dark. She shifted closer the way she always did. I love you. She smiled without opening her eyes. I know. I love you too. Those were the last words they ever shared. The next morning Ahia Ojii did not wake up. The doctors found nothing. A healthy man went to sleep and was simply gone and left medicine with nothing to write except that sometimes, inexplicably, the body stops. Only one person understood what had happened. Obinna. He walked into the bedroom and saw his brother's face. Peaceful, the face of a man who had set something down and was glad to be without the weight of it. He knew immediately. Not because anyone told him. Because the calendar in the kitchen showed the exact date the market had promised. He sat on the floor beside the bed and stayed there. The market never chooses. Now he understood. It had never chosen him. Emeka had. The shop still stands. Obinna opens it at the same time every day. Knows every customer. Slips the extra tin of milk in when he thinks nobody is watching. Late at night when the street goes quiet his eyes move to the front shelf without deciding to. The tinned tomatoes are still there. Exactly where Emeka put them. He has not moved them once. Customers always buy what they see first. That was the last thing his brother ever taught him. And some instructions you follow not because they make sense on their own but because the person who gave them is gone and following them is the only conversation you have left. Somewhere beyond that forest Ahia Ojii still opens. Every night. And somewhere in that market a patient trader still asks the same question he has always asked. What are you willing to lose? Because Ahia Ojii does not sell wealth. It does not sell luck. It does not sell miracles. It sells choices. And sooner or later, everybody discovers the price of their own.